Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Bloom and Well podcast. I am Dr. Mackenzie, and today we are going to be talking all about people pleasing and the fawn response. So if you are someone who feels like you always put people first, always put others' needs first without even thinking about it, no hesitation, you jump at the opportunity to take care of someone else, or you jump at the opportunity to say yes and then regret it 5 seconds later and you're like, oh no, I didn't mean that. Or if you feel responsible for keeping everyone around you happy, pause, right? Process that for a moment. You probably were raised to think that you're just being nice or kind or sensitive, considerate. Maybe you're the easygoing one, right? But what if that automatic people pleasing is actually your body and your nervous system trying to protect you? This week, we have been discussing the stress response. In the last video, we talked directly about freeze states. Today, we're going to be discussing fawn, how it can involve a lot of appeasing, over accommodating responses, and how it can be a way to avoid conflict in order to stay safe. So the fawn response is often rooted in your nervous system's need to maintain connection, okay? Especially when that connection felt very unsafe or very unpredictable. So fawning actually happens when your body believes that that people-pleasing tendency is the best way that it's going to stay safe, right? So I'm protecting myself by pleasing others. I'm protecting myself by avoiding conflict. I'm protecting myself by saying yes. I'm keeping the peace by saying yes to all of these things, to overloading myself, to overloading my plate, right? To not taking care of myself and letting my own needs fall by the wayside. I do want to reassure my fawn state people, because just like I did with the freeze state, right? It's not a flaw. It is a very beautifully brilliant adaptive response that your nervous system has, especially if you grew up in a very chaotic home, one where there was a lot of criticism or emotional neglect. That is your brain and body's way of protecting you from further harm. Let's talk about how this fawn response can show up in some other ways, right? And we've touched on it, but I want to talk about it in a little more detail. So how it can look like in your everyday life, because there are so many people who, especially women, that this people-pleasing, fawning tendency has been so deeply woven into who we think that we are and our identity and our sense of self that we don't even realize it's a stress response. We just think that it's natural for women, right? So you may notice yourself agreeing to things even if you're overwhelmed. So you say yes out of habit, not out of choice. Not because you have the capacity, but because you don't want to disappoint anyone. You don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, even when your body is literally screaming at you that it needs rest, right? Your nervous system is saying, hey, let's just be agreeable. Let's not rock the boat. Let's not cause any problems. We're just going to keep the peace. It can also look like avoiding saying what you really feel, especially in the moment. So you often tend to downplay your needs, sugarcoat your truth and how you're feeling or what you're thinking. Maybe you stay really quiet, even when something is very painful or feels very unfair, because expressing it feels like it's dangerous. Or maybe the feelings that might come up when you express yourself, that even can feel like too much and dangerous. So there's like this deep-rooted fear that honesty might ultimately push those other people away. It can also look like feeling intense guilt when trying to set boundaries, especially later in life. So even just the thought of saying no might make your heart race, right? Might give you that anxiety, clenching your jaw, clenching your shoulders, maybe even your fists out of nervousness. Maybe you worry that someone will be mad or disappointed or leave if you try to set boundaries. And instead of actually saying no or setting those boundaries, you overextend yourself, you overgive, and then smile through the discomfort. It can also look like feeling anxious if someone's upset with you, right? Even if it's not your fault, you feel this aching need to fix it. So maybe your partner comes home from work and they're really upset. And they tell you, my boss said X, Y, and Z, and now he's docking my pay for whatever reason. They're not mad at you, right? But you feel this aching need to fix their problem. Like it has to be fixed, and it has to be fixed right now. And you try to smooth it over for them. You apologize, or maybe you question what you did wrong or what you could have done better to make them happier in that moment, just to keep the peace, right? Even if that means abandoning your truth and your needs. It can also look like not even knowing what your needs are anymore, not knowing who you are, what you need. So because you've been so focused on managing everyone else's emotions, you've started to lose touch with your own, right? And sometimes you don't even know what you want. Sometimes you just want what will keep everyone else happy and comfortable. So the thing is that this comes at a very, very high cost. Fawning doesn't just take your voice from you, it disconnects you from yourself, right? Maybe it started as a brilliant strategy to keep you safe. And maybe that was a good thing at that time because it needed to protect you. Your body was trying to protect you. But over time, that can leave you feeling resentful, invisible, angry, bone deep, exhausted, right? It can contribute to that emotional burnout. It can contribute to relationship fatigue, even chronic health issues. Can I get a double hand raise? Can I get an amen? Right? Because your body's carrying the weight of everyone else's comfort while it is quietly starving for its own safety, for its own energy, for its own nourishment. The moment you notice this response with compassion and with grace and less judgment, that is the moment you can start to heal. That is the moment you can start to recover and regulate your nervous system. For most people, fawning tends to start in childhood or in long-term survival situations. And this is because our brains and our nervous systems learned that being nice or being helpful or being really quiet meant safety, meant staying loved, meant avoiding harm, whether that was physical or emotional, right? But now, those old safety strategies might be costing you your health, maybe even your identity, maybe your peace. Maybe it worked and it kept you safe at one time, but now it's time to move out of those old strategies because they're starting to hurt you long term, right? So people pleasing isn't necessarily your personality, it is your protection strategy. And I want to encourage you and reassure you that you can learn to shift this, right? Again, with a gentleness, not with shame, but with gentleness, with grace and compassion. So one thing that I started doing in order to move out of those people-pleasing tendencies, which were pretty overwhelming for me for a long time, is to start by noticing, right? Awareness is the first step. I say that and I feel like I sound like a broken record because I say that all the time. But awareness is the first step. Noticing when you feel the urge to please someone else. Okay? And ask, what do I really want? Or what do I really need right now? Right? I know that feels like a very selfish thing to say. Like, oh, my partner's hurting. What do I need? Right? It sounds so selfish. Right? If you're in that people-pleasing fawning state. You don't have to act on whatever that answer is, if you even have an answer, because I feel like in the early stages of regaining that awareness, most of you probably aren't going to know what you need. You've been disconnected from your sense of self for so long. At least that was the case for me, and that's been the case with patients that I've had and clients that I've worked with before with nervous system dysregulation. We get so disconnected that we don't know what we need. So again, we don't have to act on whatever the answer is or whatever the answer isn't. We just have to notice it. So what do you do after you notice, right? Maybe you've been focusing on the awareness, you've gotten the awareness down, and now you're noticing a lot more. Okay. So you've been doing that for a few days, maybe a week. Fantastic. Congratulate yourself, pat yourself on the back because that is amazing. But I know you guys are going to be like, what the heck do? I need to do something, right? Because we have that innate desire to fix it in that moment. So if you're itching for something to do, when you notice and when you know, hey, this is what I need, you notice you don't have to physically change anything. What I want you to do is offer yourself a moment of compassion. Say, oh, hey, I see myself doing it again. I understand why this is happening. I'm trying to stay safe. And then you can like tune into your body and say, hey, body, hey, nervous system, thank you for keeping me safe. Thank you for trying to do the best that you could, right? But we're safe right now. We're okay, right? And if you want to dive a little deeper into that exercise, you can even tune into your body and ask your body, hey, what's going on? Hey, how are you feeling? Maybe you notice some tightness in your chest or your jaw. Maybe you have a stomach ache. Maybe you have some pain between your shoulder blades. Whatever's coming up. And say, hey, body, thank you. I know this is a fawn response. This is my nervous system trying to protect me. I'm safe now. I can listen to what I need to. Right? And then ask your body, what do you need in this moment? What would help my shoulders feel better? Maybe some stretches would help. Maybe laying down for 10 minutes would help. And allow yourself to have that, to fill that need, guilt-free, shame-free, right? And I want to encourage you guys I want to reassure you that when you do this, it's going to take time, right? Like I'm 31, so it took me a lot of time, right? Being in that chronic people-pleasing tendency for decades, it doesn't switch like that. It doesn't change like that. Maybe some of y'all are some walking miracles, and it does. But I assure you, for the majority of people that I've worked with, and for myself included, it doesn't happen like that. Focus on the awareness, the gentleness, and the sense of safety. And with time, you're going to build that capacity to start to respond with your truth rather than the fawn response. So instead of that survival state, fawning is essentially how your body was learning to keep the peace at your own expense. But you are so beautiful and so loved, and you are allowed to take up space. So you are allowed to be seen, you are allowed to be known, and you are allowed to be loved for who you are, not just what you do for others. And I'm going to say that again for those of you who may not have heard it or may need to hear it again. You are loved for who you are, not just for what you do for others. I would love it if you guys would drop a comment below and let me know, what is one small moment that you noticed yourself fawning this week? And if you can't think of anything off the top of your head right now, maybe come back here later, or even drop it into our community, which is linked below, where we can chat and catch up on days when I'm not on YouTube. Feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe no matter what platform you guys are on. And we will see you guys in the next video, and keep blooming well.